Hey, Tosin, I can't turn on my video. Figure out how you want to scale in a way that feels good, not only for your business, but for your life. So let me bring up slides and then we will get started. Wait, Tosin, is that you with slides or is that me?
For you. You can actually share on your end, but let's see.
Oh, I can do it. Sorry. I thought that was on you all's input. Okay, ready. All right.
Okay.
Yes. So thank you, everybody. We will go to the next slide. So I run Little Fish Accounting. It is a boutique CPA firm outside of DC, and my background is in corporate and government. So I never worked for one of the big accounting firms, which means that I approach things a little bit differently from the beginning. I never understood all of those hours and all of the extra that came along with it, but it means that I really wanted to look at this from the start as a business that could support my life and support the lives of my clients. I started Little Fish about 6 years ago. So in 2018, at the height of all of the tax changes and then the pandemic. So I know a little bit about of the ups and downs that come along with entrepreneurship. And like I said, really big on building to enough. This idea that you set what your enough is, and then you move forward from there. So, today I want to talk about a couple of things. I want to discuss intentional versus non intentional growth. So, what does it mean to actually do this on purpose, scale with a end result in mind versus arbitrarily? Pillars for intentional growth. What does it mean for you to say, hey, now that I'm going to do this on purpose and grow in a very specified way, what things do I need to be paying attention to? And then finally, a roadmap to a meaningful life. This session is really for those of us who are entrepreneurs and trying to figure out that balance between running a company that we love and taking care of ourselves and not letting the business take over that as a priority. Okay, so first up, growing intentionally. For me, this is defined as thoughtful, purpose driven expansion. And I think that that's a really different way to look at things given all of the messages that we get around kind of growing by any means. Being in this situation where we're like, okay, I'm going to hire and then I'm going to get new clients. And then once I do that, I'm going to double my income and then I'm going to triple my income. And all of this kind of hamster wheel of just growing as the opportunities come. And instead, really making the decision to say, let me stop, decide how far I want to get, reevaluate at that point whether I want to maintain or grow something bigger. But I am in the driver's seat of what that looks like. This means that your growth has to be aligned with your core values, strategic goals, and capacity. And we'll get into that. But what that really means is you are building the business that you want to run. I often tell the story that there was some frustration in my business early on, and I remember kind of complaining to my husband about how hard it was getting, and he said to me, "You built this." And I was like, yeah. And he said, you could have built anything in the world and you made a thing that you hate. And it really got me to step back and think about, wait, am I running the business that I want to run? Or have I gotten so caught up in not leaving money on the table and serving as many people as possible that I forgot that it really has to serve me too? So, when you focus on sustainable growth, you're enhancing business value and client relationships. You want to build a business that you want to run and also one that clients want to pay you to do service for them. And that is really hard to do if you're not being intentional about how big you want to get, both in revenue and in team size. And we'll talk about kind of the ways to get there in a second. So, the first step that I tell everyone is find your version of enough. And again, we often start with like how much money you make or how many people that you'll serve or how many people will be on your team. But it's more than that. It is, do you want to be able to drop your kids off at school and pick them up every day? Do you want to be off work by the time the dinner bell rings every evening? Do you want to take sabbaticals or time off from work in order to be able to do things? All of those are going to be items that really lean into what your enough is, because it's all going to really establish what you're able to do and how much you're able to achieve within your business. That means that you're defining success on your own terms. Go back one, please. That means you're defining success on your own terms, but you're also balancing quality over quantity. You want to focus on sustainability. So, we want to get the best clients and the best team members and the best version of our services that we can give, not just a million of them on a cafeteria plan. And the only way to be sustainable is to make it repeatable. It has to be something that every time someone comes in, you're not completely starting from scratch. You're starting from a place of saying, I've done this before. I've got some templates and some modalities in place to be able to make this something that I can do relatively easy to get set up and to maintain that relationship with our clients. So your enough is not going to look like everyone else's enough. It could be that you don't need to make more money because you want more time, or maybe you do need to make more money. You've got to hire a bigger team to be able to support that. All of those are going to fall into your vision of enough. And it's the first step in creating this balanced and fulfilling life. So, some questions that you want to ask yourself as you're determining that. One, what do we need as a company to grow? The reality is, and the fun part about being an accounting firm is you don't have to spend that much to start. But it can be easy to get caught up in shiny object syndrome and all of the softwares and the details and the processes and all of the new things that we could do. But like, what does your business need? Does it need this fancy version, or are you good in a spreadsheet? Is the spreadsheet not enough anymore? You need to lift to something else. Determine what that looks like for your business so that you're not doing more than you have to in order to get to the next point that you want to get to. The next question is, how will growth impact our clients, team, and culture? Every time you make a pivot or you make an adjustment or you grow a little bit more, a lot of people are going to be affected, not just you. Is your team used to working a certain way? And if you implement this new software, it's going to blow up every process that they've made. Has your client gotten used to working with you a specific way? And because of that, you really need to set up what it will look like working with you in the future. So as you grow and you change things, you have to really reevaluate whether what you started with is still going to be what you use in order to support your team and clients. The third thing is, does this move us toward our long term vision, or is it a reaction to market pressures? Again, I run a firm too. And so I know what it feels like to all of a sudden think that you need to change everything because the world is changing around you. And sometimes that's true. But sometimes you're going to take a short term loss in order to get to your long term goal. And so, as you're thinking about what your intentional growth looks like, that may mean less revenue. It may even mean an investment year where you're spending more than you made, but all of that should be in service towards where you're actually trying to get to with your business based on that version of your enough that you've defined. And then the last thing is, how will this impact me and my team? Whether you're growing or maintaining what you're doing, everybody has a way that they're used to working together. And so you really want to be clear about, are there job titles that are changing? Are there job responsibilities that are changing? Do you need more or fewer people based on what your enough looks like? It may turn out that you have a really big firm and you actually should bring it all the way down. Or maybe you're a solopreneur with a couple of contractors and it turns out you need more full time employees. Making the decision about what your business looks like is partly going to be dependent on the team that serves you. And we're going to get into detail about that. But just be asking yourself how it will affect you and all of the people that work with you. We can go to the next slide. All right. So Let's start with the four pillars that I think are kind of the foundation for meaningful growth. The first one is branding. Branding is really important because it ensures that you're working with people that you want to work with. As accountants, we can do a lot of stuff and a lot of people need our services. And so it can be easy to just kind of hang your shingle and say, okay, I'm out here, pay me to do accounting work. But your branding is really going to talk to your ideal audience in whatever ways that you want to give service. So you make sure that you're getting the right clients and not just more of them. Second is services. You want to think about the ways that you want to work, what you want to offer, how much that will cost, and how much time you're going to be giving in FaceTime to your clients. Hiring a team gives you time back, whether that's contractors, part time employees, or full time employees. Being able to spread the work amongst other people that are not just you is going to make a huge difference in how you can grow and how big you can get. And then finally, client experience. This determines how high touch you want to be with clients. And so this is really setting the stage for what can clients expect when they work with you? What are they going to be doing when they work with you? And what are you going to be taking off of their plates? And also, how can they expect to communicate with you and get in touch with you when they need things beyond just the regular deliverables? All right, so we're gonna go through each of them. I set my watch because I know I only have so much time and I want to be mindful of that. So, first thing is branding. Reach out to people that you want to work with or reach them via not just your logo and your website, but really the ways that you show up. Branding is more than just your colors. It also means that it is going to be the way that you speak to your ideal client once you've defined them. How do you talk to the people that you say that you want to serve? What are you saying to them? What kinds of pain points are they experiencing? Then you want to make sure that your brand aligns with your values. So when you're looking at your core values, what you believe, what you stand for, you want to make sure that you're working with clients that believe the same thing. Now, they won't always be exactly the same, right? We want diversity of thought both internally and externally with the people that we work with. But again, when you're thinking about how you grow, how you brand, how you're talking to people, it is much easier to do that when you can align yourself in a circle or group of people who are adjacent to what you already believe. And then one thing that I think is really important is sustainability through selectivity. At Little Fish, we say no a lot. And I did not always do that. Of course, we started from a place where we were saying yes to almost everybody who would ask us to do something. But then we started branding ourselves as like, we do this really, really well for a specific group of people. And for the most part, that's solo business owners. So one owner doesn't have a partner with a small team providing professional services. Now that got more and more narrow over time. But what that means is every time I speak, every time that I put out a piece of content or write something or show up to be able to speak at an event for my ideal client, I'm always really nailed in on that audience so that when I go to add new clients, it is not learning a whole new platform or a whole new business industry at that point. I know who I serve, and my branding reflects that everywhere that we have a touch point. Next, services. So I know that it can be hard to narrow your services because you feel like you're leaving money on the table. And one of the things that I would actually kind of call out is that when you narrow your service offerings, it's often easier to make more money. One, you can focus on the services that are actually profitable for you. It is easy to throw out $100 or $150 thing that you will do, but like how much time does that take you? How much effort and back and forth and collection of information does it take you to get details from your client? That is probably not $150, but it can be built into a package of other products and services that you can do for a client wherein that does not become the main thing. That way, too, you can best leverage your expertise and provide the most value. What you're able to say is, I'll not only take over this piece for you, I'll take over all of these pieces. A good example is taxes. So the first thing is if you hate taxes, don't do taxes. There are so many ways that you can build a business in accounting that is not around taxes that doesn't have to be something that's on your plate. You can always co-firm, refer that out, or have a partner that does that for you. But if we think about taxes as more than just tax prep and instead think about it as tax prep, maybe some planning, quarterly estimates, maybe a couple of phone calls. Now you've got a package for which business owners, especially, and probably even individuals, particularly those who are high net worth, are really invested in having you as an overall partner. So determine what you want to offer, list out all of the things that you do or could do, get rid of the stuff that you hate, and build packages around the things that you really do enjoy and feel really good about providing. The next thing is structure for efficiency. Again, you want to make sure that this is repeatable on your way to intentional growth in order to create a meaningful life for yourself. It's got to be something that doesn't make you feel like you're consistently starting over. It gets really hard to add new clients or add new services or figure out what you want to offer when everything is its own monster. Instead, you want to start building services and your client base, which we talked about in branding, around what would it mean for you to all come in the same way. A great example is that all of our clients start on the first of the month, regardless of when we talk to you. Let's say we talk to somebody on the 12th. We'll do some pre onboarding, ask you for some information, get you into our systems, but like you don't actually start service on the first. That creates a cadence by which my team always knows on the first of the month, if we're going to onboard somebody, that's when they're going to start. Everybody pays us on the first of the month. There's no prorating or anything like that. And so that may not be your way, but figure out what your way is so that you're leaning into the best ways to keep your business on a track, so that when you're not standing right in front of it, it can still do what needs to be done. Scalability, choose services that can grow with your firm. And this is really important. We're going to talk about team in a second, but especially as you're determining how big your team gets, you really need to make sure that you're choosing services that can be accommodated by the size team that you have. So, if you are alone, if you're a solopreneur, maybe you have an admin, maybe you've got a contractor or two, what you are able to do is partially dependent on everybody's bandwidth. And so you really want to make sure that if it's something that requires, I don't know, weekly calls with a client, is that something that you want to offer if it's just you? That's a lot different of an offering when you've got three, four, five people supporting you. Same thing with, calls alongside or meetings alongside your service. What you're able to do, how often you're able to offer it, and how much it will cost is partly going to be dependent on how big your team is and what your specific areas of expertise are. All right. Then client experience. So balance high touch service with efficiency. At Little Fish, we take high touch really seriously. It's important to us to make sure that you feel like we are in a business relationship. We want to answer questions and be responsive. We want to make sure that if you have a question, we can get some information back to you and be proactive about what you might want to ask next. But what that means is a couple of things. One, we got to set boundaries. You can't always have access to us. At Little Fish, that means that we actually don't have a phone number that you can call into. We have to schedule all calls. We're too small to take a quick question. It will derail us. We know that. I learned it the hard way early on, and so we don't do that anymore. Your boundary may be that people can call your office, but they can't text you, or maybe it's just your work hours and a time after which you're not willing to respond to requests. Whatever that is, you want to set those boundaries so that you set a repeatable expectation for clients. If you answer them on the weekends, that is your prerogative. But just know that they might send you questions on the weekends too and expect a response. The next thing is leverage technology to the extent that we can use not just AI, but automations to really get some of those repetitive tasks off of our plate. We still get to enhance the client experience while also having a high touch, this is where I'm spending the time to reach out to you. A good example is we've got a client portal. Clients get all of their requests from there. We save all of their documents there. But we'll also send an email when we see that you haven't responded just to say, hey, wanted to check in. We've got some outstanding requests from you over here. Link them back to their client portal. But they get that one on one touch to say, hey, someone at this firm noticed that you're missing some things. And we just want to get outside of that portal to make sure that we're talking to you. Make sure that it's customized yet scalable. What I like to say is that you want to have a standard client experience. Everybody is getting the same type of experience, but there's room for personalization. So, a good example is chart of accounts, right? We are serving the same kind of client across the board. We can really create a chart of accounts that supports everyone. But every once in a while, someone wants a couple more sub accounts, or maybe they want to see their revenue broken out differently because they're all starting with the same foundation. We don't automatically have to just like lean into what they want. We get to say, okay, we're all starting here. Do you want to add a couple of things here? Willing to do that. Not willing to just give you the chart of accounts that you want because that messes up some processes behind the scenes, some other software that is integrating with the accounting system. We want to make sure that everything looks the same. Another example I'll give is something like financial statements. Depending on your tiers, you actually may have different versions of financial statements for each of your clients that you do bookkeeping for. But what you actually want to do is make one big one and then strip it down. That way, you know that people are getting a standardized experience based on what they are, and you're just getting add ons as you move up. Finally, let's talk about the team. Team is hard right now. Hiring is hard. It's hard to know like when to bring somebody in, especially when you're early on. I think that one, you almost always have to hire before you're ready. The faster you can get some of that work off of your plate so that somebody else can do it, so that you can be responsible for client relationships, marketing, business development, whatever those other jobs are that we have to do as firm owners, you want to hire somebody to be able to like support you in that. And you've got to empower them. When you hire somebody, you got to delegate the work to them. How else are you supposed to get time to live this life that you want to live if you hire someone and then you don't let them do it? So you need to be able to step away from the day to day. If that baseline work is being taken care of for you, you can go, pick your kids up from school this afternoon and not feel like there's going to be an emergency and that no one will be there to catch it. You also want to make sure that you're hiring for alignment. Knowing that someone can do the job isn't the same as knowing that they should do it at your company. And so make sure that when you hire somebody, you're realistic about what goals you have for the business, what plans you may have for their role. You want to be really specific about what you know and be really honest about what you don't know. Make sure that you're hiring somebody who works in an environment that works for you. An example is that I used to tell people when they started at our firm, I don't really know what you're going to do, but if you stick with me, I promise that I will take care of you. And here are the things I know I want, and here are the things that I think that the business is going to need later. And I know that for some people that need a really defined job description, that's not going to work. But I want to be honest about where we are right now. Finally, document the processes. You might not believe it, but making SOPs that like standardize the workflows means that you don't have to touch as much. Whether that is videos or write ups or just a transcript of a walkthrough that you've done, the more that you can hand off without you actually having to be in the seat, the more life you get to live outside of work. All right, so let's talk about quickly a roadmap to a meaningful life. So, first, define your purpose. We started with branding, but really a lot of that branding is built around the idea of who do I want to serve? And that comes a lot of times internally, right? You know the communities that you want to make sure are better. You know the industries or areas that you're best at. You can define how you serve them best and then push that out to the world via branding. Next, you want to align work with your life. So optimize your services. If you know that you are a person that wants to take, 8 months out of the year off, maybe taxes is your thing. You work in this chunk of time and then you leave. If you couldn't imagine taking more than fewer than a few trips throughout the year, maybe you want to do recurring revenue so that you know you can take blocks of time. An example at our company, we close for 5 weeks out of the year, and that's paid to everyone who works with us. We close for 2 weeks at the end of tax season. So the last 2 weeks of April, spring break. We have a summer break for 1 week in August, and we close for the last 2 weeks in December for winter break. We tell clients up front when they sign on, we remind them multiple times when they're in service with us. But that is a boundary that we have held to say, hey, our team is just coming off of the most work that they've done. We've got a heavy tax season and then we're off. We have mid year tax planning, bringing on new clients, and then we take a break. And then we've got year end taxes, and then we take another break. This is great for us, and it's part of my enough. It is built into how our business runs. Three, create balance. Design a really intentional client experience. One of two of the most often issues that I hear when people are coming to us for accountants are that they are not responsive and they're not using technology. And so you're already light years ahead if you will just respond to people when they ask you questions. Lord, act like I didn't throw that cup on the ground. So, if you will respond to people when they ask you questions, and if you'll use technology so that they can get you information really easily and smoothly. One thing that we say all the time is that it must be easy to work with and for us. And so, in order for that to happen, we've got to make sure that we streamline operations of how we do the work and then how the client gets their deliverable. Finally, empower your team. They work for you for a reason. They are not working for you as volunteers. They're here to learn and to support you and the vision of this business. And they can only do that when you actually give it over to them so that with your hands off, you can go live the life that you want to live. So, to finish this up, I will say that the road to a meaningful life means your growth, your pace. You don't have to go fast. You don't have to go slow if you don't want to. It's up to you. But know that you are designing a business that has to support what you want to do outside of work. And in order for you to do that, you are really the visionary and the architect of what that looks like. Oh, please. Work life harmony is the goal, right? You want to make sure that your business growth is not coming at the expense of your personal life, that you're not having to give up all of the things that you were working towards in entrepreneurship in order to just make the business work. The point of this is freedom. The point of you making your own business was to be able to do what you want. And if you're not building a business that actually allows you to do that, then maybe you go back to the beginning of this and start getting some ideas about how you can support that for yourself. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me today, for ignoring my dog as he did what he wanted. If you'd like to connect, we've got a QR code for you to be able to scan so that you can connect with me on any platform where I'm there speaking. Glad to have had the opportunity to share this with you today. Would love to hear your thoughts or what you're doing in order to build to enough wherever you can find me.
Thank you, Kayla. There's a question in the QA. I'm going to show
Yeah.
it on the stage.
Okay. Angela, so the question is, what does your admin do and how many hours do they work? Our admin has actually moved up to our head of ops. And so she does a lot now. But when she started, she worked about 20 hours a week and she took off, the administrative work. And that meant sending proposals, following up with clients. What ultimately became her job was everything up to actually bringing them into service. So that meant looking at the applications as they were coming in, rescheduling meetings if they needed to, making sure that they got all of the initial information and responding to questions that they had about our service. And then as our team grew, her responsibilities grew and she was able to move up in the company. She's still with us. She's been with us for years. What else? Let me make
So
sure I
yeah,
did.
that's the only question. Thank you so much, Kayla, and thanks everyone for joining.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Nice to see you.